Alright, hi everybody. My name is Fangel, the queer millennial, and today we are going to talk about my story with vestibular migraines. When I had my first migraine, what my symptoms are like, how I was diagnosed, and at the end I'll share some key points that I hope you take away from my story because you just care about how my story will help you. So at the end I will be listing the tips and things that I hope you take away. So my first really debilitating migraine was when I went to college, and the things that changed when I went to college was that I had a roommate now, and that affected my sleep. And the second factor was stress. And so pharmacy school was kind of stressful, and sleep, I don't know, kids at college are not sleeping early and getting up early and doing all that stuff, and I'm a light sleeper, so if my roommate came back and if my roommate was trying to work like in the room and the light was on, like I wouldn't be able to sleep. And like when you're awake you just make like noises, right? So that didn't really help me sleep. And even if she went somewhere else to do her work and then came back, she'd be like slamming everything, like slamming the doors, slamming the bathroom, slamming the drawers, everything. So that was not good for my sleep as well. So I couldn't sleep, I was stressed out, and so I started getting migraines. So let's move on to symptoms. So my primary symptom, my first few migraines I had like really bad vertigo. Like I remember one time I woke up and the room was spinning. Like it was like the room was going like this and then going back and going like this. And so that was pretty scary and concerning when you've never experienced anything like that in the room and spinning and you don't know if it's going to stop. And then the spinning, the vertigo, caused nausea. And so I remember one night waking up from like the room spinning and then like immediately having to like puke in my dorm into the trash can. So yeah, I had no idea what was going on. Very concerning, panicking, don't know what's going on. And so then I would keep getting migraines, and then after a few, the room didn't spin anymore like that, but I was still like very dizzy, and I would not be able to stand up straight. I would have to position my head a certain way so that the dizziness would be less. So for me, usually I have to like sleep on my right side, and I wouldn't be able to stand up right. I'd always be hunched over like I wish, like this, because I don't know, something about like being upright just like messes with my internal brain. So the dizziness, not great. But the worst part for me about the symptoms is that the dizziness causes nausea, and the nausea is like a gnawing nausea, like inside your body, in your stomach, and it feels like a ball of anxiety was placed in your stomach and it won't go away. And so it builds and builds and builds until you throw up. And usually when I have a migraine, I know I'm going to throw up, so I don't really eat anything and I just try to stay hydrated. And even then, I will still throw up clear fluids. I will, even if I don't have any fluids in my stomach, I will still like throw up, and I can feel like all my inside visceral organ muscles contracting, and I think that's the worst part, the nausea and the anxiety that comes with the nausea. And so my symptoms typically last about, like the really bad part of the migraine, like the dizziness and the throwing up, usually lasts about like a day now. And I usually take like half a day to kind of like recover from it. So usually like I'll like have a migraine one day and then I'll take the day off the next day just to recover. That's now. While I was in college, they would last for like 2 days. One time it lasted so long I wasn't like drinking any water or anything. My brother had to take me to the ED. So that's about like what the duration would be. I also have a blog post about this, so in case you're interested in reading and seeing like the graphs of like the duration, like prodrome, migraine, postdrome, and like what kind of symptoms fall in between those phases of the migraine, check out my blog post. I will put the link in the description below. At one point in college, I would have my migraines and then I wouldn't really fully recover. I would just like be dizzy the whole time. And so I used to play like club volleyball the first 2 years of college, and I had to stop playing because like I was dizzy all the time. There was no way that I could like track the ball in the air, right? Like I was a setter, and so like I had to track the ball in the air, and like that I was dizzy just by like walking. So there's no way I could be like going like this and not be like exacerbating it. And so there was a point where I was dizzy all the time, but I'm not dizzy all the time anymore. There is hope. So let's move on to diagnosis next. This was a really long process. So I got my first migraine when I went to college in 2011. It's 2022 now. I got diagnosed during COVID, like in 2020. So that's almost 10 years for me to get like an actual diagnosis, tangible. I know what this is, what to do, blah, 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 how to treat it, how to prevent it, had a name for it. So diagnosis, what happened was I am deaf in my left ear, like partially, hard of hearing. So I go to my audiologist on a regular basis. Well, I should anyway. Well, back then I was to get like hearing tests, whatever, and then I brought like the situation up with them that I was getting migraines, that I also like did a college thing and like went to a party and the music was blasting in my ear, so I like became a lot deafer. Regrets. Anyway, so I mentioned that to them, and then they referred me to an ENT to get checked out. So I went to an ENT, like took steroids for my hearing loss, which didn't help. Much regrets. And then like trying to figure out like this dizziness thing, and then this ENT couldn't figure it out, so they referred me to another ENT. But the day that I was gonna go to that ENT, the second ENT, I was having a mild migraine and was dizzy, and so I couldn't do any of the tests that they were gonna do. And so I saw the doctor without taking any of the tests, and so he like listened to my symptoms and whatever, and told me I had Meniere's disease and to eat less salt to prevent fluid buildup in my brain, in my inner ear, to cause like the dizziness. And so I was kind of like, okay, it wasn't really like a good experience. I felt like I was being rushed through. He didn't really take the time to understand me. Maybe I wasn't really good at also verbalizing my symptoms and telling him what was going on. And so I left that appointment, didn't do the tests, was diagnosed with Meniere's disease. I googled Meniere's disease. I don't think I have Meniere's disease because, I don't know, I only have hearing loss in, I don't know, my left ear, and it's like, it doesn't like fluctuate or anything. Anyway, I don't think I had Meniere's disease. Maybe one, because I'm in denial, and because like there's not many treatment options for it, and I was refused to have something that had like such a poor prognosis. I don't know, something about that. Or I didn't really feel like I had it based on the symptoms that I was reading on the internet. And so after that, I kind of like gave up seeing any doctors because, I don't know, didn't have good experiences. But in between like that first doctor and like the end of college, I did see 2 more neurologists. I saw maybe just one actually. I saw another primary care physician just for like checkup, probably regular checkup, and I told her about the migraines, and she gave me Furacet, but the caffeine and the Furacet gave me diarrhea, so I was having a migraine, I was puking, and then I'm having fucking diarrhea. So that didn't work out. Then my last year of pharmacy school, I was on rotation with a student who also had migraines, and she was taking like Migravent. Like, she had migraines too and was taking Migravent, and it was helping her, and so she referred me to her neurologist. So I went to see that neurologist, who didn't really give me any like more helpful information, and she told me to take Migravent. So I started taking Migravent, and I was still on rotation, but now Migravent was giving me fucking diarrhea with all the magnesium in it. It's in the wrong ratio of vitamin B2 and magnesium. So I would not recommend Migravent. I'm sorry to say that. So then that didn't work out. Then I went to residency and was busy and didn't have time to figure out my shit. And finally, after I graduated residency, I went to my PCP, got referred to neurology, got referred to my ENT neurology, who referred me to a neuro-otologist / ENT person, who finally gave me like a diagnosis of vestibular migraines based on my symptomology? I think that's a word. And 9 years later, almost 10 years later, that's when I finally got my diagnosis. That is my story with vestibular migraines. What I really hope that you take away from this video is to keep trying to see doctors about an issue if your other doctors are not helping you or haven't given you the information that is helpful for your situation. So seek a second opinion, seek a third opinion, seek a fourth opinion. Just keep going until you find the answers that you're looking for and find the treatments that will decrease the frequency and severity of your migraines. I think that applies not only to migraines, but also any other chronic diseases. If you know something is wrong, don't take no for an answer. There are, unfortunately, doctors out there who will dismiss your concerns because you're a woman, because you're fat, because you're black or brown or whatever, and they might refuse to do the things that you ask them to do. And I read this online once. It was, if somebody just refuses to do a test or refuses to do something that you're asking them to do, ask them to document that in your medical record. Ask them to document that they refused whatever it is that you asked them to do. And sometimes they'll actually acquiesce and do what you ask them to do. The third point is, throughout all of this, like the 9 years of migraines that I had before getting like some real answers, I was having pretty bad mental health issues. And I think that comes hand in hand with your physical health. I think the two are very closely interconnected. And I wish that I had tried harder to take care of my mental health, whether it be going to the student health center while I was in college and getting some counseling, like coping mechanisms, whatever. And even when I was in residency, I wish that I had made it more of a priority, because your physical health, if it's suffering, will affect your mental health. And your mental health, coping mechanisms, your being able to cope with stress, if you're not able to, that will in turn affect your physical health as well. And so it's just an interconnected circle. And I wish that I had valued my mental health as much as my physical health, and maybe I wouldn't have suffered for so long. Lastly, if you are going through a hard time now, I know how bad the symptoms of a migraine can be. It can be so intolerable, maybe to the point where you question life, which is where I was multiple times. And it's so important to remember that it eventually ends. It feels like it will never end in the moment, but It always does. And you just have to hang on and wait for it to be over. You will feel better again. I am living proof. So hold on to hope. You won't always feel like this. In the next video, I'll be talking about what to do for vestibular migraines, what doctors to see. I kind of alluded this in the video already, but I'll go into more depth in the next video and kind of share what the information that they told me, which was helpful. I'll talk about how to prevent migraines, how to treat migraines, medication-wise and therapy-wise. So if you're interested in that information, make sure to subscribe so you don't miss out. Thanks for watching. Bye.